Let's talk about health. Happy New Year to you all. I'm very excited because it's a new year, it's a new month, it's a new week, and a brand new day. And you are all warmly welcome to your brand new show on Omega Live TV. And this is brought to you by kind courtesy of Omega House Multimedia, which is based here in Tottenham in London. Um, Omega House Multimedia specializes in event coverage, specializes in all sorts of media works, including souvenirs. They cover all your parties, and you can really reach them on 189 Wood Street, E17 3NU. And you can also reach them at Omega House, 74 West Green Road, N15 5NS. I'm very excited today because they have given us this platform for all your health professionals to come your way and share all their experiences with you. The very last show, I must say, went really well. And we had an overview into kidney disease. And I think I will take the opportunity to say a big thank you to Mrs. Winifred Asari Yeboah, who we had the privilege to present on kidney disease. I am equally excited today because we are going to be touching on a very important subject which really focuses on children's health. So if you are all interested, just join me as we welcome our guest tonight. But it is very important that we bring you a recap of all the feedback that people gave us on the show the last time. I am really appreciative of all your feedback, but the most important one, I will just paraphrase, was one that a lady gave me, and all she said was, I was really thrilled to be listening into the program because I had a lot of health issues going on, and eventually they put it down to endometriosis. And actually, as a result of that, eventually from the treatment, she ended up with kidney disease. So her request to me is, can we make sure we have someone to treat that topic, endometriosis, on another day? We won't discuss that into detail today, but I say thank you for that incredible feedback. Today I'm going to let my guest introduce herself, and she will be talking about a community perspective, but with safeguarding children in focus. So you are warmly welcome to Let's Talk About Health. Can you tell us your name and tell us what you've been doing, what your specialty is, please?
Thank you for having me. My name is Mrs. Alberta Awotri. Awotri, to be honest, because most people call me Awotri in work, so pardon me for that. And my background is safeguarding children. I've been an expert in safeguarding children for almost 20 years, and I currently work in an NHS in London.
Okay. Oh, you are warmly welcome once again, Alberta. So safeguarding, it is a very sensitive issue, I guess, and the only times we hear about it is when something has gone really, really wrong in the system. That's the only time we seem to have the headlines about safeguarding. What exactly is it?
Before I touch on that, I just want to quickly let the viewers know that we want to give a bit of a health warning. This topic is quite emotive and it's contentious. We all know that. Also, when I talk about a child, I mean anyone from 0 till the day before their 18th birthday is considered to be a child.
Okay.
Yes, just so that everybody understands that. And also, any examples I'm going to use throughout this discussion are cases that are already in the public arena. Because of confidentiality, I would not be able to share other cases that are actually active.
Yeah. Okay.
So
sensitive, did you say?
Yes, it's very sensitive and very emotive as well. But to actually talk about safeguarding, it's relatively broad in terms of definition. But what I would say is that you look at it from this perspective, that you have this umbrella, and on top of the umbrella is safeguarding, and there's different sections within the umbrella. Now, the first section is protecting children from abuse, or child maltreatment, as we call it. The second section would be dealing with preventing impairment of health and development in terms of children's health and development. And another section would deal with ensuring that children grow in an environment that is safe and also receiving effective care. And the fourth quadrant of that umbrella, as I use to explain to make it easier for people to understand, is that it's important that we take appropriate action, in our quest to safeguard children. Take appropriate action, which is consistent in ensuring that we get the best outcomes for children. So I can give example for that. Taking appropriate action. For example, we have organizations who have got children accessing their services. They're responsible for ensuring that the staff are provided with appropriate training, that they'll be able to address safeguarding concerns, they'll be able to recognize it and address it. They should be able to provide supervision to staff who are dealing with children who they work with. It's important that they complete police checks on employees who are actually working within the organization.
So that is everyone dealing with a child in one way or the other.
Just an example. All the other all the other three, I can also give examples. Protecting a child. What do you mean by protecting a child? It's important that when a child is identified to have actually suffered harm or likely to suffer harm, this will go through a referral process. It will go through the MASH, as we call it, or Children's Safeguard Social Services. And then they would then do their investigations. We call something Section 47 inquiry. It's the legal terminology. And once they've actually done their investigation, they would then go through the child protection process, where all professionals, multi-agencies come together and invite the families as well and look at the best way forward to try and safeguard this child.
Okay, so in trying to find out more about the subject before coming here, I found that we are actually talking about the United Kingdom.
Right.
Specifically, isn't it?
That's correct.
Because it's possible that there are different rules in other areas with regards to safeguarding. So are we specifically talking about the UK?
I am definitely talking about UK.
UK.
But safeguarding is safeguarding everywhere.
Everywhere.
And because we all work within WHO, but then every country have got their own legislations. And the overarching legislation for UK in terms of safeguarding is called the Children's Act.
So there are two words that are coming out here, safeguarding and child protection. Are they just being used interchangeably, or are they the same thing? What's the difference?
It's a good question. Child protection actually is an aspect of safeguarding. Remember when I was telling you about the sections within the umbrella? The first section is protecting children. So that is that aspect. And it looks at actually addressing children who have actually been identified as having been abused. So once it's been identified as a child has been abused or likely to be abused, then we've got to protect the child. Hence the terminology child protection.
Okay.
But it's all it forms under the umbrella of safeguarding.
I see. So safeguarding is really broad.
Very broad.
With child protection being just a little aspect of it.
Very much so.
Right. Okay. Viewers, I hope you are all focused and listening to this, because when you go to Rome, you have to do what the Romans do. So it's very important we get conversant with issues that are actually here in the UK, isn't it?
That's correct.
Because ignorance of the law is no excuse at all.
Yes, very much
So yeah, we really need to don't know this one.
Yeah.
Is there? Can you give us some of the statistics? Because if we do not know and the numbers are really low, then there is no point us worrying about it. But
Right.
what statistics are there to support this? Do we have to be very concerned? Is this something happening all the time?
Yes, I can elaborate on some statistics, but we have to understand that these are not just numbers, these are real cases involving children and families who have actually suffered throughout the whole process. Some children ended up dying as a result of that. So, in terms of national statistics, it's been recorded that 50,000 children have been identified.
Have been identified as having
having
been vulnerable or
been
at risk,
identified as either as actually been abused.
as being abused.
In UK, that would include Northern Ireland, Wales, and England. Yes. That has been identified. And not only that, the children's charity by name NSPCC, I'm not sure whether you're familiar with
Yeah.
NSPCC, they are also of the assertion that in every one child that's identified, yes, there's 8 other children who are also suffering and not receiving the appropriate support to safeguard them.
Wow. So we're talking of huge numbers
Huge
of
numbers.
children.
And the reason being that children are sometimes too scared, too ashamed, or they could be too young to even
Understand what's
going
going
on.
Mm.
So it's actually difficult to put a cap on the number, but I'm sure it's broader than that. But as it stands, because we actually collate these figures as and when we identify these children, this is what's coming up, that over 50,000 children, but it could be more.
Those are the documented cases.
Exactly. So that is why we have to take safeguarding seriously, and make sure that we all work towards make it our business to safeguard children. It's good that we are here today trying to raise awareness.
To raise awareness. Awareness is very important in every aspect of health, I guess. So what is the background then to the children? Can you just set the scene for us?
Okay.
So we understand where we are going, we're progressing with all of this. Yeah.
Okay, I can set the scene and going back 4 decades, but because of time, I will keep it succinct. So, in 1973, we had a child by name Maria Polwell. She was 7 years old. She was taken into care because she was being abused in the family home, taken into care. And they did some work with the family and eventually decided that it was time for her to be reunified with the family. So she then joined the family and found that mom had remarried. So she had 2 new siblings with a stepfather. Unfortunately, she was killed by the stepfather, and it was really sad. In fact, she weighed about 3 stones when she died.
That's a very low weight.
Very low weight for that age. And she also, not only did she suffer a very kind of, I would say, the kind of, nobody wishes that on anyone, to be honest, but the sad part of that, her siblings also went through a lot of abuse. There was one time that apparently the dad went to buy, the ice cream man came around, the dad went to buy ice cream, but only bought it for the wife, and made sure the wife sat there with him, and actually ate the ice cream for the children, and they purposely did not give the children.
So
I mean, who does that?
these were children who were found to have problems in their homes and were
Right.
taken into care.
Right. But at some point, they felt that they done a lot of work with the family, and they felt that the child could rejoin the family. But unfortunately, this happened, and she was killed. She was beaten And it was so sad.
By the foster parents?
No, by the stepdad.
Her own
Stepdad.
dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she also had brain damage and internal injuries.
Oh, that's a result of the treatment.
As a result of the beating that she went through. So that is way back. I'm talking about 40 years ago. Now, fast forward to the 21st century. If I'm sure everybody would probably have heard about Victoria Plumbier in 2000. Victoria Plumbier was brought to the UK by her great aunt, who promised her a better life, and she was maltreated and she died a very painful death. By the time she died, she was 8 years old. She suffered about 128 injuries, and there were scars as well. And some of the scars was consistent with somebody who had cigarette burns. So the great aunt's boyfriend at the time was using her body as the ashtray.
Oh dear.
That is how sad it was.
Oh dear.
Yeah. And her death really raised a huge public outcry and led to a public inquiry which was carried out under Lord Lehman. And he came up with about 108 recommendations. And some of these recommendations actually was a drive to change policies, child protection policies within the UK. And one of the changes led to the reason why now we have a private fostering arrangements, because before anybody could leave their child with anyone. But following that incident, if somebody is going away on holidays and they want you to look after their child and you're not blood relation, you have to go to social service.
Okay.
Yes. If they're going to be away for more than 28 days or more, you've got to go to social services so that they can assess and make sure the person is kind of fit to look after your child.
Okay. This is a bit confusing actually, because how safe is it then to be taken into care? You know, how safe can it be, or how unsafe can it be to be taken into care?
In the first instance, they try to get the children to live within the family home or relatives. That's what the social services try to do. Get somebody within the family. It could be an auntie, grandmother in the first instance. But when they've done their own viability assessment and they can't find anyone, then it goes to care home. I beg your pardon, foster care.
Foster care.
And you know, we all know that outcomes for children in foster care is not that brilliant either way. However, when there's no other option, then the child has to go to foster care.
Foster care. Oh wow. Right.
And having there's a lot more, but I will just keep it short. So I've talked about 1973, Maria Cowell. I've talked about Victoria Plumbier. Now we also know about Baby Peter Connolly.
Yeah.
He also died at the age of he was only 17 months old, and he had suffered 50 injuries over a period of 8 months. And the sad part about his case was that he was already known to health and social care, but he was such an invisible child, unfortunately. I mean, people would go to the home and the mom would say child is sleeping, they would see the child, and also where they would see the child had chocolate all over the face, and they weren't even aware that mom was covering up the bruises with chocolate. By the time they realized, it was too late, and the poor child, as frail as he was, died.
Is there a better way to protect the children and nurture them? Is there any better way? And more so, how do people identify that a child is actually, because you said there were visitors going to this home and the child was almost unkempt, isn't it?
Exactly. We have health professionals who actually go home, call them health visitors. They go home and they're part of the multi-agency
Multidisciplinary
or multi-agency practitioners who deal with if there's a child protection process, a child who is under 5 would have a health visitor taking part in the process. So they would have to do regular visits. So yeah, they are going regularly, and they work within a core group. We call it core group members, where all professionals meet regularly to discuss the child. So it's unfortunate that despite all that was in place, the child died.
Yeah.
They've done a serious case review on that. What I mean by serious case review is that when a child dies, where they are known to social services and health, where there's concerns about child abuse, there is always some kind of a panel that sits to look at how professionals work well or did not work well together, and look at lessons that they could be learned from that to prevent that from happening in future. But it keeps recurring, so we have to look at a different way of looking at it. For me, I feel like that we have to be we revitalize the community in a way, and make sure that, as we say in Africa, there's a verb that says it takes a village to raise a child. It's a big responsibility for us all,
the whole community.
so it's a community to take that responsibility and look out for each other, because if we don't raise confident, strong children now, we end up having to mend broken adults. Because the thing with children who've been abused is that it has an impact on them in the long term, and some of them end up having mental health problems that takes them through to the adulthood, if not addressed.
Okay, so my worry is how people can actually identify, because we do know that if people don't know what to look out for, it's very difficult for them to think something is going wrong. See, so if somebody goes to a home, how can they tell that this child is really at risk here?
I mean, when I was going through the safeguarding question in terms of the broader picture of safeguarding, I didn't touch on categories. There are 4 categories of abuse, which is physical, emotional, sexual, and neglect. So these are the 4 categories that we look at. So you need training. So if professionals, that's why it's mandated for them to train. All professionals are being trained at appropriate levels to look based on their competencies, so that they'll be able to identify children who are at risk of abuse, or who have actually been abused. So, and also they do have supervision. So when they've had supervision, they will then be able to discuss cases with their supervisor. But when it comes to the general public,
that's the professionals.
But when it comes to general public, we know that safeguarding is everybody's responsibility. In case of Victoria Columbia, it was a taxi driver that identified that she was being abused.
Okay.
Yes. So we don't need an expert to be able to identify. You can tell what is right, you can tell what is wrong. And when a child, sometimes, if a child, you can tell the voice of the child sometimes just by the way the child acts, not necessarily even by looking at the child. You can tell. And where you're not sure, it's always better if you're not sure to refer to the appropriate authorities to assess than not to. So it's always good to discuss with someone else.
Yeah. That will be an issue as well, because you don't know who to talk to, or who is there anyone, how do they contact these people? Because I mean, we know it's always a problem when somebody's like whistle blowing, or when somebody is suspicious of anything and they want to raise an alarm. How can individuals like raise an alarm of children who are at risk, being abused?
Every locality of every borough, every area have got their own local authority and social services, and so and they have a 24-hour service. So if anybody is worried about the welfare of a child, you don't have to worry that, oh, maybe it's after 5, so I can't get hold of them. These days they're accessible online. You can either do a referral anonymously. You don't have to even, write to give your details if you don't want to. You could refer anonymously, and they would actually go in and do a welfare check on this child, or get the police to go and do a welfare check and do the assessment, and then decide if there's a cause for concern.
Mm-hmm.
So there are people who do that job. All you have to do is raise the alarm.
Yeah. Right, viewers, if you are watching us online and on Facebook, we are discussing a very sensitive topic today, safeguarding children, why it matters, and why we all should see it as a community problem, because the numbers that are coming up is quite huge. And I am quite shocked and I'm overwhelmed by the whole thing, because if we are having to multiply these numbers by like 5 or 8, then it's like thousands of children who are affected just in the UK alone. And we are not even thinking, we know we do have a lot of viewers, people watching from Ghana online. This is coming to you by kind courtesy of Omega House Multimedia, and they are based here in Tottenham, and all the details to contact them should be on the screen as you watch now. Like I said, I'm just overwhelmed. I do updates, annual updates. I think it's like 2 yearly updates on safeguarding, but then having someone to talk to like this, coming up with all these statistics, it's a bit overwhelming actually. So I hope we are all going to learn a lot by the end of this session. Can you define child abuse specifically for us, please? Because I think that it's very important we get that clear in our mind.
I'm going to break it down in the simplest terms. So child abuse actually is abuse and neglect. Abuse and neglect, which is a form of child maltreatment. Okay, it also affects children, but could actually be they could actually be abused by adults, or they could also be abused by children. They are same age group. It doesn't have, or it could even be, it could be anyone. Okay, but the whole ethos of it is that it could be someone who actually inflicts harm on a child, or someone who fails to protect the child from harm. It's equally a form of child abuse. If you fail to protect the child from harm, that's a form of child abuse. And so this is how I'm going to look at it. And also, child abuse is often considered as, it could only happen to this issue around stranger danger. It's only could happen when the child goes out, somebody could kidnap them. No. It's very rare. We know that stranger danger is a concern. We know that we've had a few of these happening, but Childline has mentioned that they've had more than 50% of their calls coming in, children calling in, complaining about what's happening to them at home, that they've been abused by their family members.
Okay.
So we know that it happens a lot more within the family setting. Yes, it also happens within institutions. It's also happening within community settings. So it's like very broad. It could happen anywhere at any time. So it's how do we deal with it? Because it could happen anywhere at any time. And having mentioned that, I also want to touch on, I've already mentioned the categories, but I also want to touch on the fact that we have harmful practices.
If you say we have harmful practices, is there a category of people you are talking? Okay.
The way I say it is harmful practices, and I'm going to list them. These are the harmful practices. Once I list them, then we can talk a bit more about this. FGM, female genital mutilation, is one of them.
That's more common in Africa, isn't it?
Exactly. So-called honor-based violence. Honor-based violence. And this happens in a lot of Asian communities where they either feel that they're bringing shame to the family because either they
refuse to marry someone.
They're not towing the line, or they call something they call not following the correct code, as they call it. And some people have ended up being killed because they feel that they brought shame to the family. Okay, and also forced marriage. Forced marriage is also another concern, where people have been made to have to marry people that they don't love. It's different from arranged marriage. Arranged marriage is because both families, the person, they actually prefer to marry the person. But being forced to marry someone is not. There was once something on the news years back, a doctor, she's a very intellectual person, from an Asian background. She traveled abroad only to find out that the family were thinking of getting her to marry someone, so they seized her passport and all that. It became a big issue.
Without her consent.
Without her consent.
Obviously.
So yes, we shouldn't underestimate it really happening within communities. And another one that I'll talk about that one last, but I'll talk about spirit possession and witchcraft phenomenon. That's also a concern.
All these cases come up here in the UK.
Yes, there was a case, I'm going to
Okay.
talk about witchcraft. There was a case that happened in 2020. The young person was 15.
2020.
Beg your pardon. I'm 2020, right? 2010.
Yeah.
2010. Happened 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It happened on Christmas Day. This young man is from Congo background, and he had visited his sister and the sister's boyfriend, and he was 15 years old. He got killed on that day because they were so certain that he had some kind of witchcraft. Both her sister and the boyfriend are in prison as we speak because it was such a gruesome death. He suffered about 100 injuries.
Oh dear.
Yes. So just because they believe this has something to do with faith-based violence or abuse, and no culture or religion should be a reason a child is abused.
I think I'm going to take us back a bit to the FGM, female genital mutilation. I'm sure my viewers will be interested. Not everyone will understand what that means.
It's a very broad topic, so I would just give it a quick synopsis, and I might have to come back on a different day to address it because it's really involves a lot. But there are certain areas within Africa. There's about 29 countries that practice it in Africa, and for those who don't understand what that term means, another terminology for that is female circumcision, although we don't like to use that word. What happens is they actually believe that young girls should have their external genitalia, some parts of the external genitalia cut off, or a majority of the parts of the external genitalia cut off, and it causes a lot of problems for these young girls.
So it is illegal.
It is illegal.
Yeah.
Definitely illegal. And there's something we call we have legislation that covers it, right? And for the first time, someone has been convicted for practicing that in the UK.
Okay.
It happened last year. Although we've had laws in place for 34 years, nobody was convicted. But one doctor was prosecuted, but he was cleared.
The doctor was prosecuted for
because
what? Actually performed.
a mother went to have a baby, and in the process, because of the nature of this harmful practice, the baby couldn't come out. So he actually had to cut through to get the baby out.
Yeah.
And after cutting through to get the baby out, he then switched it back to what it was before. So he was being accused that he was actually performing it by stitching it back to what it was.
Okay.
Anyway, it's
complicated. It's very complicated.
Because I think he was from that ethnic background as well, so he was, they were suspicious around the father, his beliefs. So our belief systems can sometimes also influence our decisions.
Yeah.
But he's been cleared.
It's been cleared.
Yeah.
Right.
But one lady who is from a Ugandan background, who is also going out with a Ghanaian, recently, just last year, and got convicted for cutting her 3-year-old's external genitalia, and it's illegal in the UK, and there are laws in place that it has now been amended to the Serious Crime Act 2015.
Yeah.
You would actually spend a jail term. She's in jail for 11 years.
Oh dear. Yeah. One thing we have to know is whether they perform this procedure in the UK here, or they take them out of the country to have it done. if they ever come back to this country, they are still going to be persecuted,
Exactly.
isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. And when there's information that they're actually thinking of taking them abroad, there's
Mhm.
something we call the FGM protection order that can confiscate their passport and stop them from taking the
From
children abroad.
taking the all with the aim of
Yeah.
protecting
Yeah.
that
Because
child.
it causes a lot of problems as they grow up.
Yeah.
A lot of problems.
Right, so it's very important for people to know this. Yeah, you know, I remember one day I was actually walking through town with my husband, and we had two kids having a chat, and what they were saying is, oh, you know what, my brother, when we were in Ghana, my father hits him with benkuta. Yeah, obviously because they had said benkuta, I knew straight away that they were Ghanaian. You know how
Exactly.
children talk.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so we just looked around and it's like, oh my God, does anyone know these children? And the conversation they were having.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then we said, if anyone knows them, can you please draw their attention to the fact that we are in a different place, and if you are not careful, you will be in big trouble. Because I mean, like Benkuta, yeah, even though she had said
That's implement. Yeah, they use implement.
Yeah.
And the laws in this country, there's no encourage smacking. And the worst part is when you use implements. When you use implements, it leaves a mark, and when it leaves a mark, that is actual bodily harm, and you could get in trouble with the law. The reason being that even though the legislation says that you can only smack using within a reasonable punishment, but it doesn't define what reasonable punishment is.
Yes.
So if parents misinterpret it and try to use it to, thinking that, oh, because it's not clear, I can do what I want, then they'll be found wanting when it comes to the law.
So smacking, what is smacking? What is it? Smacking,
Because
just
hitting a child, either with your hands or with implements. It's not something. It's not something that the law encourages.
We are not allowed
there are
to
other
do
forms
that.
of discipline that you can discipline your child without. And I tell you what, these children who get physically chastised, we call it physical chastisement. It damages them emotionally, because they grow up to resent the parents who do that to them.
Right.
Yeah, it has a long-term impact on them.
So viewers, we are not allowed to smack our children. The thing is, you will not be able to tell when it's a bad hit and when it's a gentle hit. So because we cannot define
what is reasonable punishment,
then it's not allowed. End of story.
Exactly. There are better ways of dealing with children using positive parenting.
Maybe it will be good to share that with us then, isn't it?
Yeah. There's other ways using reward systems, depending on the child's age actually as well. Sit down and talk to your children and find out, have a kind of chit chat with them, make them know where they've done wrong. Nobody can tell anybody how to parent their child. I know that for a fact. But what we don't advocate for is using physical chastisement, because then the child grows up very resentful. They will end up, they could end up getting hurt, and the emotional aspect of it. The scars will heal, but the emotional aspect of it is what is concerned.
Yeah, it's what is difficult to determine, and it's for good. Right. So there's another thing that we tend to see a lot: children being left on their own. I mean, as parents, we are responsible through and through, isn't it, for keeping these children safe? So at what age can we consider it safe, if there is any age like that, to leave children at home on their own?
It's not clear what age is actually legal to leave a child. The law is not very clear. Then again, every child matures differently. So you cannot determine, where a child could be 16 years old and could be very immature, or they could have additional needs. There could be a 12 or 13-year-old who's very mature, and so it's difficult to put the age to the whole thing. You know your child, you know what the child is capable of doing. But one thing is for sure, you never ever leave a baby, you never leave a young child, you never ever leave.
So by young child, what age limit are
Up
we?
to age of 10,
Mhm.
11, I wouldn't leave them by themselves.
Mhm.
You come home, your house will be set on fire.
Yeah.
You wouldn't leave a child that young, under 12, home by themselves.
Mhm.
I wouldn't. And the worst part is leaving them with siblings. That's even worse, because when they have an argument, you don't know what will happen. Look at it that way. If you're not there, and also 16-year-olds, under 16-year-olds, you should not leave them overnight. You mustn't.
And under 16.
Yes. You mustn't leave them
Should
overnight,
never.
because you don't know what's happening with all that's happening online. Young people are getting groomed online and all of that. Anything could happen. The house could be set on fire. You don't want that. So NSPCC is very clear guidance for parents. Anybody wants to know how to manage this, they should best go online, NSPCC's website, and look at home alone. Google, tap in Go Home Alone, and it would give you guidelines as to what age is appropriate. And they will tell you that they can't give you the age, but they will tell you they have recommendations as to what is the best way to go around it.
Yeah.
I mean, I took a snippet of it. I don't know whether it's helpful for me to mention it. They state here categorically that, first of all, babies, toddlers, young children must never be left home alone, unsupervised by an adult. Children under 12 years should not be left for long periods of time, and under 18s should not be left on their own overnight. So that's how they've said it. A child should never be left alone at home if they feel uncomfortable, no matter their age. So if your child is telling you, I'm not feeling comfortable about mommy, don't leave me here. Having said that, there's a 14-year-old who was left home alone by parents who traveled abroad because they had a family emergency. The grandma died or whatever. The 14-year-old is about almost 6 foot. Very mature. And they also told the next door neighbor about it, to keep an eye on him. They made sure there was food, they had money, he had the phone to access them, and the neighbor was checking him on all that. He was confident. Yeah. Somebody mistakenly saw him going home by himself and decided to call the police. The police went and said, "Oh, he's compos mentis, so we don't have a problem." His mom put everything in place. So, and the neighbors checking on him, they spoke to the neighbor. So they didn't find anything wrong with that. The police were not concerned.
So this is a sensible child who can maintain their safety at all times.
Exactly. On the other hand, there was a 17-year-old who mom left 3-year-old sister with and went abroad. And the 3-year-old got ill. The 17-year-old boy, he's busy on his games or what have you. Went to check, the baby wouldn't wake up. Baby dead.
Oh dear.
So you can't. The fact is, she got in trouble for leaving the 3-year-old with the 17-year-old, but she's still considered a child. So, but you look at the age difference, you think, oh, but a 17-year-old I could leave a child with. You understand? So it's difficult for anyone to tell you this is the right age. You know your child. If something goes wrong, the law will deal with you. That's all I'm saying.
The law will deal with you,
Exactly.
and the law really works here.
Exactly.
So if it catches up
and
with
then
you,
parents are responsible for ensuring, and carers as well, are responsible for ensuring the children are safe. So it's your duty to make sure your child is safe
at all times,
at all times,
day or night.
Yes.
Yeah. That is very good advice for all of us, because if anything happens, it is your responsibility.
Exactly.
And it is important to state that it will not be the responsibility of whoever you've made caretaker at that time, isn't it? It is your sole responsibility as the parents to ensure the child's safety at all times.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is the bottom line of the whole.
Also, mothers who leave children with unregistered childminders should be very careful. I wouldn't encourage it.
Unregistered childminders.
If you either leave with a relative that you trust or leave them with a registered childminder, I wouldn't encourage anyone to leave their children with anyone who's acting to be a childminder who is actually not registered. There's been occasions where the child ended up with injuries or bruises and it's come to bear and that they are not registered, and the parents are saying, I didn't cause this, it's a childminder. How do you defend yourself? But whereas the childminder is trained to keep log of any concerns.
Are they meant to have like a registration number, anything the
I think,
parents
yeah.
can specifically ask for?
Exactly. They have their own kind of charter that they deal with.
They deal with.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
have to make sure that there's evidence that this person is actually a registered childminder.
Because I know, like for nurses and a lot of
Yeah, we have a
professionals,
register.
yeah, we have a register.
Exactly.
So before anyone employs your service,
Exactly.
they can actually check on the register
Online.
to see
Online,
online,
yeah,
isn't it,
yeah.
whether you are
Exactly.
fit for
Practice.
purpose,
Exactly.
so to speak. Okay. So now, domestic violence and domestic abuse, I'm sure, will play a huge part in all of this, because I'm sure it's right the basis of
Yeah.
a lot of these things happening. And can you throw some light on that for us?
All right. Domestic violence or abuse is a big concern. I mean, last year, 2018, alone, we had 2 million people suffer from domestic abuse. Reported cases, 2 million.
All right.
And this one, when you say domestic abuse, the definition now covers 16 and 17-year-olds as well, who are in relationships. So it's from 16 to 50, 50s, 60s. They're all part of that.
I think it's probably better we define that as well, isn't it?
Yes.
So we know
Yes.
what we are talking
So
about.
if I want to define domestic abuse, the Home Office has defined it 2015 as any incident or pattern of incidents of controlling, coercive or threatening behavior, violence or abuse between those aged 16 or over who are or have been intimate partners or family members, regardless of gender or sexuality. This can encompass, but it's not limited to, the following types of abuse. So psychological, emotional, sexual, financial, physical. They all form part of what we consider as domestic abuse.
I find a very gray area there, because this time the definition for domestic violence is like 16. Technically, these are still children.
Yes, still
Because
children. But
before
the
they are-
thing is, they recognize that different. They have that the different relationships that young people form in their neighborhood, schools, and online can feature violence and abuse. That's why they incorporated that. You know, we have young 16, 17-year-olds sometimes are in relationships. There's always abuse, there are all these issues going around child sexual exploitation and all of that. So there are issues around there. So the government decided to include that. Yeah, it doesn't mean that we are trying to encourage them, but we know that it's happening.
They are technically children,
Exactly, exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah. The law says if you're under 18, you are a child. The same law says you can go to the army from 16 to 17. Yeah, so it's a bit of a gray area. You're totally right about that.
Whenever child protection comes into the scene, we will hear a lot about domestic violence, domestic abuse. Again, what do people do? For instance, you have a neighbor, you are concerned that there could be abuse going on or domestic violence going on. What do they do about it? Is there anything they can do as
Of course,
neighbors?
they have a you know, it's everybody's responsibility. So if you're concerned about your neighbor, obviously, you don't have to go in to try and separate them, because you could get caught in the middle. We don't encourage that, but you call the appropriate services. Like I said, they are 24/7 available, so you can contact the local children's social care. There are children involved, but if they're adults, it's a different ballgame, because they have to give you consent. But when there's a child involved, the child is in the home, then you don't need any consent from the parents. You can call and let them know that you have concerns about your neighbors, or you hear a lot of noise. Because children get caught in the crossfire.
Yeah.
You know, when there's abuse going on, and sometimes they could be asleep, but they can still hear the noise. And the fact that they can hear it, they get scared and they get anxious. And that can impact on their emotional well-being. So I've already mentioned some of the statistics, haven't I? In fact, yeah. And we've also had a researcher who researched, was it recently? When was this? It was 2018, and found out that across 43 police forces within UK, and found out that 173 women were killed within their homes because of domestic abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and there's something we call the Clare's Law. The Clare's Law is a domestic violence disclosure scheme, which allows anyone who's going into a relationship and who's concerned about or not sure about the person can go walk into the police station and say, you know what, can you do a check on this person?
But the person they are going into relationship with.
Yeah, you can do
Really?
that, yes. And then
Okay.
they can check and see if there's any criminal history
Okay.
before you can commit into such a relationship. Because once you're in there, it's sometimes difficult for them to come out. And once they come out, that's when they're even more at risk.
Oh, that is why I like what we are doing now, actually, because how are we supposed to know all of this if we are not having chats about it? It is very difficult to know.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Omega Live at TV, Omega House Multimedia, for bringing us or giving us this platform for us to have all these professionals to come and discuss with us, because there is no way we would know
Exactly.
some of these things. So what are some of the worst forms of safeguarding concerns? Can you elaborate on?
I will. There's something we call toxic trio. Toxic.
Toxic trio.
It
Okay.
involves 3 elements.
Mm-hmm.
Domestic abuse
Mm-hmm.
is one. Substance misuse, or that's drugs and alcohol
Yeah.
within the home.
Mhm.
And also parental mental health, one of the parents having mental health issues. These 3 features, if it's happening within the home and there are children involved, then it's a concern, because the outcome for these children is very poor. Because I can give one example of one that happened. Child died in 2011, but we didn't find out. Oh, no, 2009, but we didn't find out until 2011.
Mm-hmm.
The child's name is called Hamza Khan. Yeah, Hamza Khan. He was 4 years old. Mom had mental health problems, obviously. Yes, she was suffering from domestic abuse, separated from partner, had about 8 children, couldn't cope with, had depression and all of that.
Yeah.
And also was drinking a lot of alcohol as part of a way to kind of help her to kind of come to terms, with what was going on. Unfortunately, she wasn't with it, to the point where the child was starved to death.
Oh.
The 4-year-old died. Nobody found the body till 2 years later, still in the court. Mummified body. There happened to be a community police officer who happened to be a community safety police officer, happened to come around the area, knocked on the door. The smell that came out of the house made him concerned.
And the child had been dead for 2
2
years.
And the other children were told, don't say a word. Just say your sibling is gone to Portsmouth.
Oh dear.
Very sad. So you see,
How old was this child?
4 years.
Oh dear. Well, was the child not in school? Or?
It wasn't, unfortunately, because 4 years is not statutory. Nursery is not statutory compared to mainstream. So that is why, unfortunately, he slipped through the net. There are other children who have also slipped through the net, even though they are in mainstream. There's another case like that where the child was starved to death as well. Over almost how many weeks? A couple of weeks the child was in school. So that was a missed opportunity, because if the school had followed up, they would have known that the child was issues going on, and they could have rectified it. And even if the child wasn't eating at home, they're going to be eating at school. So it's unfortunate. So toxic trio is massive. It's massive in terms of the fact that research shows that children who live in a home environment where these 3 features, the outcome is really, really dire in terms of when they grow up. It affects them, their mental health, even when they grow up to become adults. That's even if they survive it, because they might get killed, like what's happened. We have a couple of serious case reviews that have identified that. So we see it as a high risk. The risk increases by margin when we find that these
Margins.
3 things are happening in the
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
All the alarm bells go up, and
Yeah.
we have to take it seriously.
Definitely, isn't it? Yeah. And what is the best way for the public to address these sorts of safeguarding concerns?
Yeah, I think we mentioned it before, but I would reiterate that because it's important that people know what to do. So, like I said, if you have concerns about a child's welfare, please do contact your local children's social services or the MASH team. We have a duty social worker.
Which team?
We call it MASH, or you can call it Children's Social Care. These days, they've all got websites. If you Google in whatever borough you're in, social services, it comes up. You can either do the referral anonymously or by calling them, or you can do a referral online and report it. And then someone would obviously go home and do a welfare check and do the assessment and make sure the children are safe. That's all we have to do.
Are safe.
Yeah. And also, if you have imminent concerns that the child, you're really concerned that if somebody doesn't deal with this child now, something could happen to the child, then you have to call 999. Get the police.
Yeah, I knew I was going to be overwhelmed by this subject.
We need a debrief after this.
Yeah. No, honestly, I'll be fine. But I wonder what people are thinking.
Yeah.
And these things happen every day. We think it's far away, but it's very possible that it's happening next door, and it can easily be missed, isn't it? Yeah. And another thing that gets to me a little bit is, when we the foreigners go into hospitals and people start asking us certain questions about our home situations, and that we find it almost like, is there a witch hunt going on? Yeah. Should they be concerned? Usually it is for your own safety or the safety of your child, isn't it?
What kind of questions
People come into hospital, isn't it? And they try and ask you, oh, where do you live, and what is the home situation like, and especially when you take a child to hospital, they ask these questions. Because I remember when one of my sons was younger, and they were playing in their room, jumping on the bed, and then the next thing they land on the floor and there's a swelling, you want checked out. And then you go to the hospital and they start asking you, where were you at the time when it happened? Obviously, I was in my lounge. Yeah. Should people be concerned?
No, they shouldn't. They're just doing their job. They have a duty of care. And sometimes you get children who come in with non-accidental injuries. Non-accidental injuries mean that it was inflicted on them. We've had children who have died. I've given so many examples already. Have children who they've had injuries that even when they've done skeletal scans, X-rays, they found out that they have actually old injuries. I mean, broken bones that had repaired. So they want to make sure that it was accidental. So they're just using their professional curiosity to ask questions to make sure that this is not, and also when you don't come into any timely, if you don't report the concerns on timely, then that also gives cause for concern. Because some people would rather not bring the child early because they have something to hide. So they just ask some questions to make sure that they cover all the tracks. They have a checklist to go through to make sure that they cover all eventualities in that.
So these are legitimate questions.
Exactly.
Yeah, they are not trying to catch you out.
Not at all.
It can be scary though, because most of the time when we get asked professional questions, the first thing that comes into our minds is, they're after me. Is it because I'm black? Is it because I'm blue? No. But no one is actually witch hunting here. It is all just with the child's well-being in mind. I've been so overwhelmed by this session. I'm fine though, and I want the message to come across that it is very important we know these things, because otherwise things could be happening to our children. And because it's not only in the home, we should not forget that it can happen at the childminders, it can happen in schools, nurseries, bullying and all
Churches,
that.
mosques.
Yeah, so if you know what to look out for, then it gives you that hint if something is
Exactly.
wrong. And the more we chat to our children,
It's
the
very
more they
important.
open. And
Very
in the midst of
important.
all my being overwhelmed, I forgot to say we would open the phone lines, but I guess I will probably give another opportunity another time, so we look
okay.
more into this. I will still mention the number anyway. I'm not sure whether people will phone in at this last hour, but the number to call if you have any questions. But if you do, you have to keep it short and sweet. And it's 07411096380. Number again 07411096380. Our guest tonight has been Mrs. Alberta Awoche. Yeah.
That's right. Let's get it right.
The Awoche or whatever. That is your English version.
Honestly, I
Yeah,
forgot. I forgot where I was. You have
Yeah.
to pardon me.
Yeah, and she has been taking us through child abuse, child protection, trying to domestic violence. These are things that happen to us or happen in the community on a daily basis, if we can say that, because these statistics are overwhelming. So it's not possible it happens like once in a lifetime. It does happen on a daily basis. It's very key that we know and watch out for these things. So if anyone wants to phone in, like I said on the last show, it is a brand new show, and we are still trying to get people into it. All your health professionals will be here, and we will be discussing the things that we need to know, because I think there is a huge gap between being well and then being ill or being unwell, because we the health professionals, we don't talk about these things. So that gap is almost impossible to talk about everything when they come to see us in the hospitals, isn't it, or in the community. So it is very important we have these chats, get people to understand how the system works. A lot of us are ethnic minorities, meaning ethnic minority, meaning this is not our original home country.
Exactly.
We had different practices back home, and then we have come here. But then, like I said at the start, ignorance is absolutely no excuse. So please find time to listen to these sessions. So before we round off, and I'm still waiting, if you want to phone in, you can phone in on 07411096380. And I have to say again that big thumbs up to Omega Live TV for always giving us the opportunity, giving us the platform for us to have a chit chat like that. So before anyone calls in, can you just give us a recap of what you have been going through, just like a summary of what you have been going through up till now?
Okay. So all I've been saying here is that safeguarding is everyone's responsibility. We all have a role to play within the community. The school, health, churches, everyone has got a role to play in safeguarding children. And also, it's important that we look at harmful practices that are affecting our children. In terms of culture, we all come from a different culture backgrounds, but there's certain practices that, even though we grew up in that culture, we should not condone abuse. And once we're in UK, we should abide by the laws of the land and make sure that we safeguard children, because they are our future. And so we have to make sure that we bring them up we nurture them in an environment that will make sure that they thrive and be able to reach their full potential and become confident adults. Confident adults.
Yeah.
So that's all I'll say.
Okay.
There's a lot to this topic. I'm just remembering so many things I should have said, but I can't say everything in 1 hour.
Oh, like
Yeah.
Usually it's just good enough to keep it simple.
Exactly.
Yeah, because if we go into technicalities,
Exactly.
I'll be the first person to be confused, so we wouldn't go into that.
Exactly.
So viewers, before we round off, I'll have to say a big thank you to you. I don't think we are going to have any callers, but the next time I will invite people to phone in. I hope you come again to do another aspect of your
Definitely.
speciality. Yeah, because there's so much. Going into details, we will miss it. But I have thoroughly enjoyed this session. But I'm a bit overwhelmed as well because I can't believe all this is happening. So definitely, we have to have a debrief.
I will do that at the end of it. When
a,
the comments go off.
debrief session, yeah, just to tune me back, yeah, and
Yeah.
to just set me. But if you've been watching us on YouTube and on Facebook, we have been discussing safeguarding matters, but with emphasis on children, because I know there are safeguarding for adults, vulnerable adults as well. But today our focus was on children. And we've been telecasting this on Facebook and on YouTube through Omega Live TV. Omega Live TV is based here in Tottenham and in Walthamstow. If you want the address to contact them for all your media needs, including filming your big events and for all your souvenirs, all your party favors, you will be doing yourself a huge favor by seeking their services. You can contact them on 189 Wood Street, E17 3NU, and you can also reach them on 74 West Green Road, N15 or N15 5NS. So I think I'll take this opportunity to say a big thank you to you once again, Mrs. Alberta of Awochi, for spending time with us this evening. Next time when we come your way, by popular request, everyone is asking for the English version of managing heart attacks. That is the very first session I did.
Okay.
And I did it in Chi, Fanchi.
Fancy.
Fanchi. So people have been asking me, can you do it again? Because I'm Ghana and I don't speak Chi. And yeah, and I have international viewers as well who are asking, can we do that topic because we didn't get the message? So I am keen to do it. I've got some other professionals lined up. So they will be doing other topics. So I am just going to round off and say a big thank you to you all for staying tuned in, and watch out because the next session will probably be the English version of looking into heart or cardiac disease. Thank you very much and stay blessed. Thank you.